Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Obscurity of Maximum Security with me, Kara Phillip, and most importantly, Mike Johnson.
Hello.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I got a couple of addendums to two stories we talked about. One is I talked about Judge Bob Thomas, who was the kicker for the Bears.
The Bear.
And after I watched the program, I said that the court was in St. Charles, but it was in Wheaton. So I just wanted to clarify that in case Judge Thomas sees this.
Wouldn't it be nice if Judge Thomas sees this?
It was.
Hey, Judge Thomas, come on.
Yeah.
Come back and clarify for us. Join us here.
So, his courtroom was in Wheaton, not St. Charles. Hey, they're both on Route 38.
Yeah, same difference.
And the other was a story I told about the transfer where we hit the deer with the bus. Something happened that I really wanted to add to that. After we hit the deer, and we got out, we got the rifle and shotgun from the cover car. This guy pulls up in a pickup truck and talks to the state trooper who had also, came on the scene. And the state trooper and the guy in the pickup truck picked up the deer and threw it in the back of the pickup truck, and the guy drove away. And
good for him.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was weird. But another thing about that incident, when we hit the deer and the driver got the bus over to the side of the road, I was in the cage in the back of the bus, and I looked, and the deer was like twitching. So, I opened up my cage and I went through, and of course the guys are all yelling, "Get us out of here, mother!" It wasn't like the bus was on fire or something. The front end was smashed in.
You just weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. And so I said, just shut up. You're going to be okay. And because we had to get out and get the weapons. Mm-hmm. So I got out and we went to the cover car, and then I looked over at the deer again, and he was still. Okay. So I asked the lieutenant, I said, "Hey, if that deer was suffering, could we have shot him?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, if you want to get fired."
Well, because now you deployed your weapon.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, well, maybe, it's a moot point now because the deer had crossed the Rainbow Bridge. And, but I thought about that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, we were talking about writs, furloughs, funeral furloughs. And I think we talked about death row runs.
We did.
Okay. Well, I got a couple more stories.
Beautiful.
One is another funeral furlough story. And as I mentioned, they're hard to get approved, especially if a guy is somewhat notorious out on the street, if he was a high-ranking gang member and something like that. This funeral furlough I'm going to tell you about now, excuse me for laughing, but, I'm at roll call, and they call my name off. They said, "Okay, you're going on a funeral furlough today." I said, "Okay." So I go to the shift commander's office. I get the packet, and the captain hands me the packet, and he says, "You're just going to take the guy through the drive-through."
You're just going to.
And I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, this funeral home has a drive-through viewing." Yeah. And so I said, okay. So it was up on Halstead in the city. So, it had two guards, of course, one inmate. And we drove through, and there's like a window there, and the open casket.
Oh.
We pull in front, and the guy, like I mentioned, 15 minutes. But again, he didn't take the whole 15 minutes.
Because you're just sitting in the car. You're not even standing up.
And so, I was like, well, that was my first experience with a drive-through viewing funeral thing. I don't know if they still have it or not.
But also, could people walk up, or is it exclusively drive-through?
Yeah, really. It's, when I was there, it was just us in the drive-through thing. And then he said okay, and we pulled out and we came back to Joliet.
He didn't even get to stand up.
Yeah, that was It's it's really, it was something different. I had never done it before, and I don't know if they still have that option there. The place is still open.
And then they probably do. If they're still open, why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I never had another one after that. But anyway, I wanted to share that story.
Yeah, I'll have to see.
It's something different. It's really out of the ordinary, and although I think there are other ones in the country that have it.
So yeah, we'll have to look that up.
Another interesting thing that we used to do, we used to go get the parole violators at 11th and State, which was a Chicago PD station. And this is in the 80s. So we would bring a Polaroid camera with us. Okay. What we did with the Polaroid camera was, before we loaded them up into our van, we took a photo of them, just in case they were a little dinged up, or somebody gave them a tune-up or something, and that way we, because sometimes they'd be marked up. Now that could have happened out on the street somewhere.
So you got to prove that you picked them up like this.
Yeah,
so you're
right. CYA.
Presenting them in their proper condition.
And I always thought that 11th and State was kind of a dump, and they ended up closing it like 30 years ago. And I think there's apartments or something in there now, or condos or something. And so they rehabbed it. But back in the 80s, we used to go up the freight elevator. And it looked like inside of that elevator, it looked like somebody might have got cuffed around or something. I don't know. But it was pretty beat up.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah, it was a little beat up in that freight elevator. And so we get up there and we'd get the guys and, hey, stand over there by the wall, take a Polaroid of them. And that way, when we got back to Joliet, the inmate couldn't say,
this happened here.
Did it or something,
Mm-hmm.
And, he said, no, this is what you look like when we picked you up.
So on a parole violation like that, they didn't have to sit in jail forever. They got picked up by the police and they were like, hey, this guy's back to being yours. Yeah,
if a guy violated his parole, he would come back to Joliet, and the parole board would come once a month. And when I was a counselor, we gave the guy the option of waiting to see the parole board, or if he wanted me to hear it.
Oh.
And it would be called a Morrissey Brewer hearing if I did it.
Okay.
I never had an inmate say, yeah, I want you to
I was going to say, do they ever? That's a little, just one person. You got to really, that sounds, I like the idea of it being a whole board, not just one person.
Yeah, so we had a form. And you're waiving a Morrissey Brewer hearing, inmate had signed it. I said, okay, you'll see the board. They came once a month.
And then they just sit there until then.
They present their case. Sometimes their parole was violated, and sometimes they were
got to go back out.
Yeah.
So I learned something today.
Oh.
Thank you. I didn't know that much about parole. Thank you for joining us this episode of The Obscurity of Maximum Security with Kara Phillip and, most importantly, Mike Johnson. Bye-bye.
Bye.